be, and I am gonna.
And with due respects, I'm going to have to jump off around 7:30, okay? That's not a whole true number, but I have another committee meeting to go to. So
Okay.
I'm with you as long as I can, plus a little bit more, okay?
Okay.
Did you say
well,
7:30? Because then you should have him talk first.
I'm sorry, did you say 7:30 or 8:30?
It's 7:30. I can, but I can be 10, 15 minutes late. So we're
All
okay.
right.
Are
All
you
I'm saying
okay
is
with that?
no problem. Yeah, no problem if you want to start the questions off.
All right, so
no
we'll,
problem
Thank
at
you.
all.
we'll switch then. Okay, last minute curveball. Okay, so I'm gonna call this meeting to order. We begin live streaming as it being recorded. Counselor, if you can do me a favor and read the Open Public Meetings Act notice and then do a roll
Yes,
call,
sir.
please.
Yes, I hereby announce that pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. And the notice which was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall, and filed in the Township Clerk's office. Now I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Burke,
Here.
Commissioner Buffalino,
Present.
Commissioner Gilstein,
Here.
Vice Chair Castaning,
Here.
and Chair Kenji.
Here. All right, thank you. We have a quorum. Next order of business, if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing after that for a moment of silence to honor our troops both here and abroad that work tirelessly to protect us each and every day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remain standing, please. Thank you. Okay, let me begin. So last week, I mentioned that there's been some relaxing of COVID rules and some public bodies have been returning to conducting meetings on an in-person basis. However, the Charter Study Commission is at a stage where our meetings involve guest speakers, all of whom are from our town. So the commission actually would like to return to in-person meetings. However, we also recognize the value and the benefit of hearing from our town expert speakers. Those speakers have expressed a strong preference and the need to come before the commission on a virtual basis rather than in person. This is true for one or more speakers in our last 4 meetings. The commission is an independent public body and accordingly will make decisions based on the best interests to accomplish its statutory mandates. Therefore, we will evaluate the situation and will return to in-person meetings when we feel it's appropriate. Regardless of whether the meetings are conducted on a virtual or in-person basis, the public can continue to hear and watch our proceedings in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Also at the last meeting, I explained that we are now in phase 2 to explore alternate forms of government. We heard from 2 experts on the various alternate forms of local government that could be considered, and an expert on New Jersey ballot design and the line. In addition to these expert presentations, we thought it would be beneficial to hold direct discussions with elected officials in towns within Monmouth County that currently operate those alternative forms of local government, including the different options within those forms. For example, where the mayor is elected directly by voters or not, and where elections are held on partisan or nonpartisan basis. We heard from elected officials from 2 towns, Marlborough and Tinton Falls, under the mayor council form of government. This is also known as the strong mayor form of government. Under this form of government, the mayor is always elected directly by voters. Marlborough Township opted to hold the elections on a partisan basis. Tinton Falls, on the other hand, opted to hold its elections on a nonpartisan basis. We also heard from the mayor of Ocean Township, which operates under the council manager form of local government, with elections held on a nonpartisan basis, but where the mayor is not elected directly. Tonight, we are pleased to have with us elected officials from 2 towns that operate on the council manager form of government, in which the mayor is elected directly by voters. First is Deputy Mayor Amy Quinn from Asbury Park, in which the mayor is elected directly in non-partisan elections. And we will have Fred Tigerini from Aberdeen, in which the mayor is elected directly in partisan election. So in both, we have mayors elected directly, but one is partisan, the other is non-partisan. When phase 2 is concluded, we will then move to phase 3, where we will discuss, deliberate, and make decisions on possible recommendations. Ultimately, any recommendation by this commission are subject to approval or disapproval by all Holmdel residents in a public referendum. With that, and I know we're going to have a change in lineup, let me turn the floor to Commissioner Castling to introduce Mayor Fred Tigerini, and then will guide us through the discussion to a series of questions. The floor is yours, Commissioner Castling.
Thank you. Welcome, Fred. Let me just introduce him briefly to those of you on this call. Fred and his family have lived in Aberdeen since 1987. As a volunteer, Fred served as a booster club officer for the St. John Vianney School, director of the Matawan Aberdeen Babe Ruth League, and district commissioner for the Babe Ruth International Baseball. He was initially appointed to town council in 1995 and was first elected a mayor in 2009. Currently, he's also a member of the Aberdeen Township Planning Board. Fred represents Monmouth County on the board of directors of the New Jersey Conference of Mayors. This is a partial list, by the way. He has lots of things going on. He's a longstanding member of the Aberdeen Economic Business Council, and in conjunction with Monmouth County, the mayor was instrumental in creating the first and only county park in Aberdeen, now known as Fresno Woods Park. Fred was an instrumental force for the construction of the Aberdeen Transit Village at the Aberdeen Matawan train station, which, by the way, is the busiest station on the New Jersey, North Jersey coastline. Mayor was responsible for bringing solar power to Aberdeen. He's a graduate of St. John University, formerly employed by Advanced Publication, a mass media company, for 38 years. Fred is now retired, concentrating his energies as a full-time mayor. He's happily married to Donna, parents of 3 children, Jennifer, Anthony, and Joseph, and proud granddad to 6 grandchildren. You better update your website because it only says 3.
Okay, well, we're going through a change of our website. Bill, I'm exhausted. I don't know after that, but it's a pleasure, and thank you for that introduction, and thank you, Ken, for inviting me, and it's a pleasure serving with all of you here tonight.
So as you know, we're going to ask you some questions, and feel free to expand on any comments. First of all, please describe your municipality's form of government.
Okay, we're a council manager form of government, and I could expand on that at the moment, but I think there's an answer somewhere deeper in what I've answered to you already. We're responsible and the policymakers for the township, whereas the manager, who's appointed and answers to the mayor and council, is directly responsible for hirings and day-to-day business. And what we feel good about on that form of government, which we've all inherited, which I believe was the second question, basically, I'm the odd one in the fact that I'm retired and I go to town hall every day, but councils are usually made up of a variety of adults of different age groups, still working very diligently in their jobs. And this form of government, which I've found to work, is the fact that you put your trust into an individual and they do the day in and day out business of the town, always connected to the members of council and the mayor. So I feel that it works well. What I've done and I may be bouncing around with some of my questions. What I did when I came into office, I immediately went into what we would call committees, very simple committees. And even though not one council member may be in charge of a department directly, like our friends in Matawan, when an issue comes up, I immediately ask for 3 members of the council to form on a committee, whether it's parks, roads, budget, anything that may have development, anything that may come up. I immediately ask for council volunteers to sit on these committees, to study the questions, to get back to us, either an executive session or open workshop. It doesn't really matter because they're just reporting back. So I do like our form of government because it's really up to the individual council member to do as much as he or she can do based upon what they're doing in life, taking care of their families. And with the little wrinkle that I put into the system, which is a committee to handle different topics, I did that because I really wanted this council to get involved with issues and make them feel like they're more than just a legislative body and meets twice a month. And this way they're doing some work, doing homework, and they greatly appreciate that. And it also, it really gets the job done. I don't want to jump too far ahead. Is there a system or a questions in which you wanted answered? I think I might have hit 2 or 3 of them already. But
I have a question, Fred. If you, we try and have the commission ask questions after each question if we can. Otherwise, we'll lose track. Do you recall why Aberdeen changed their form of government to a Faulkner Act form of government? And what was it before you changed to a Faulkner Act?
Well, a lot went on prior to me even living in Aberdeen. And I make light of this. I think it was influence from the United States government post office. It was at one time Matawan Borough, Matawan Township. And what transpired was an election of whether or not the Aberdeen residents wanted to have a change in name. And of course, obviously they did and changed it to Aberdeen Township. And at that particular point, that's the government that they selected.
Mhm.
So it's really because, as we say, with a smile on our face, it was because they were going to give us our own post office and zip codes. And I'm looking at a lot of faces who are probably saying, oh yeah, we've heard that too. And I mean, my zip code is Matawan's part of Old Bridge. I've got Keyport zip codes in Aberdeen. And we just tell people who are confused, you know who you pay your taxes to, because we know who they are, but a lot of folks are very confused by it. So that's really, it happened way before me. And basically I've inherited this form of government. And for me, it does work pretty well.
Mhm.
Mayor,
Yes.
you mentioned that you form these committees and you get 3 counselors to sit on the committees. Do you also have citizens from the township participate on these committees, or is it just that these are committees of councilors?
These are committee made up of council people only. We do have support crews. I'm sure just like the rest of you, we have our environmental committees, we have our shade tree committees, we have our business council, which I'm really, really proud of because we started that when I got in, because I realized the one element that seemed to have been forgotten, but not on purpose, was the fact that the business communities had no link to town government. So I sit on that and I meet with the business community every month, once a month. And that is, I think, has paid dividends so many ways, including our townwide Aberdeen Day. So all the committees that are dealing with subject matters of township council are committee people, our council people, and then we have our volunteer groups all made up of private citizens.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So you pretty well described what you think works best of your current form of government. Do you have any ideas of how you could improve it?
Quite honestly, I think it's working well. And the answer that I gave you about how we've injected committees, I think satisfies myself first, because there's 2 or 3 of us who are retired that can give so much more, and we do. But it gives those folks who are still working full time, and as I said, they're taking care of their families and doing their responsibilities, but it gives them the opportunity to get more involved with topics like my road committee. They're all full-time people working, but they get together in the evenings. They get together with the engineers. They decide what roads we're going to do in any given year. And that's just one example. And they're all full-time, still working in their lives. But I think if you would to go with this form of government and you feel you're not being utilized enough, and that was the case with me in the beginning, I think then the committees are a great way to implement putting your council members to work, and they pay dividends because they greatly appreciate being on those committees and actively steering the rest of the council to what they want to do. So I think that's the little wrinkle that I've added to our form of government.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I saw that you have a deputy mayor. Is he appointed or elected?
He is elected every 2 years, not directly elected, from the council. So at a reorg meeting this past January, and listen, we make no secret about it, we've rotated the deputy mayor position that would coincide with an election. So our current deputy mayor, Connie Kelly, is up for election in 2 years. So these 2 years leading up to her election, she'll serve as deputy mayor. 2 years from now, after that election, and we reorg again, there'll be a change of deputy mayor. And this is another way of getting the other council people more involved with a title and everything else. And as you know, we all marry people, and the deputy mayor can marry folks also. And that's just another little help to me, that if I can't make something, the deputy mayor can step in. And that works pretty well. So the deputy mayor comes from a motion from within the council, always predetermined, of course. And then the vote is taken, and we usually have the deputy mayor leaving that seat make the motion to show the continuance of our government, and then the new person will take over for 2 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the next set of questions you may have answered, but I'll go through them anyway. Do you have any thoughts on whether electing a mayor directly by the residents versus by the town council? I think obviously you do have a thought on that.
Well, I do have a thought on that. And quite honestly, Bill, I think it works out great for Aberdeen, because that's the only government we do know. And as I said, we inherited this government. But I really feel that the resident wants to know who their mayor is. They want to know who they're going to call at 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night when JCP&L and we've had some great times together, right? Like him with JCP&L. They want to know who their leader is, who their mayor is. And believe me, Aberdeen residents are not shy of calling me anytime, day, night, weekends. And I'm prepared for that. We're all connected. The cell number went up on Facebook years ago, and they know how to get a hold of me. And the comments from the residents sometimes they'll say very lovingly, "Oh, he's crazy. He put his number on Facebook, and we're going to call him." And of course, they all say, "Good afternoon, Mayor. Good morning, Mayor. I hate to bother you." And I feel like saying, "No, you don't hate bothering me. I want you to call me, and you did want to talk to me, and you did want to call me." So I think they like that. But then personally, I've gotten to meet so many people who have served in the position of mayor, and I use Holmdel for an example because you're hosting. I mean, I must have met 4 or 5 individuals who have served as the mayor position in their particular term. Because what we do from Matawan down to Atlantic Highlands, we also have an organization called the Bayshore Mayors, where we get together 4 times a year to discuss policies, and we bring in guest speakers from the state, from the county, and we have an opportunity to meet. So I must have met so many great people from Holmdel alone who have served as mayor. But I always say to my colleagues at these meetings, why don't you go direct elect? I mean, unless there maybe might be an ego problem at this point, and I say that with all due respect, because someone may say, well, I'm next in line, and that may satisfy them what they want. So I thought about that. I really do think a resident wants to know who their mayor is, and that it's not changing, and they're saying to themselves, well, now who's mayor? And so I like what it is, and I think my colleagues in Aberdeen like the fact that I get the calls also. So but it really does work very, very well for us.
Thank you. How many council members do you have?
We have 7. I'm one of the 7, and I should make this very clear that I have no special extra powers. I have a vote on every issue. I do vote, even though 99% of our votes just might be 7-0. So I don't abstain. I vote. That's my job, to vote. And my name is called out, and I cast a vote. So I don't have extra votes. I don't have any extra powers. If you looked it up in Faulkner, I preside over the meetings is one of the number 1 things that is said according to the Faulkner law. However, of course, it's always more than that. Town manager and I are always together daily and to discuss everything. And that's the good thing about this form. Though he's given and charged with the day in and day out business of the town, he'll always start the conversation. I'm thinking I would like to do this or do that. And we have great conversations, and usually there's a great mind melt, and we work together very, very well. And I do have to say that the fact that we're removed from hiring or dismissals also keeps us a little bit cleaner from the day in and day out. But of course, the manager will call me up and say, I have to discipline this person, that person. He makes a great case of it. Usually 2 or 3 people will get a hold of Mr. Russell and say, yeah, we understand that's the case, and please proceed. So it kind of buffers us a little bit, but at least Town Hall knows that the gentleman sitting in the office at this point in time is in charge.
Fred, does he also serve as the senior finance officer for the town, or do you have a separate person?
We have a CFO. We have a CFO separate. I know the fact that years ago, that was a move that so many of us thought could take place, maybe even should take place. But after you do this for a while, and especially at the time of the year that we're in, and looking at all the faces here, you know that this is budget time. Mm-hmm. I think we're introducing the first Thursday in April. We know how busy our CFO is. because my budget committee will ask the darndest of questions, and that's why it's so good having them as the committee, and they work with the CFO. It would almost be too much, even though the thought was one day we thought we would be able to find a manager who would be able to handle the CFO business. But in reality, I have to admit, on this forum right now, I don't know how good of a move that would be, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you've been stuck at 7. And how big is your town? What's the population?
We're just shy of 20,000 now in the last census, 1980.
Do you think 7 is a fair representation?
I think, yeah, and having come out of the volunteer part of the world, as you so well said, Bill, I just find that that's just a great number. Any more than that, you know what it's like when you're just having discussions about any topic in your life. More than 7 people in a room, you could go on for hours, because don't forget, 2 more people are adding maybe 2 more ideas. Not that it's not great, but we just find that 7 is a very good working number for us, and we've proven it.
Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So 7 works. What do you think how it would be if it were 5? Would it be, you'd be spread too thin?
No, I don't think so. Unless you're going to implement, if you were to go to our form of government, then I'm just saying it's nice having the 7, because I can certainly give out enough work or suggest enough work for my colleagues that they're serving on board. Like my road committee just doesn't work 1 month a year prior to budget times. They're working constantly, and I know them for a fact. I've known them for years now. They're always looking at the roads. They're always changing their proposals. They're always saying, well, here's our next 4 roads. And my goodness, by the time the year goes by, those 4 roads have changed. So I think 7 is good, because when you think of all the areas that I mentioned, and even when we were discussing marijuana, cannabis, we had a committee that suggested, knew the feelings of the 7 of us, and we're very fortunate that we were in total agreement on that. So we had a committee, and so things come up all the time, and that's when I just go right into committee. And they're so quick to volunteer now, because they want to get involved. So if I had 5, I would even think it might not be enough to form the committees that I form.
Thank you. Are your elections partisan or non-partisan?
We're partisan. Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah.
And
exactly. I sent the last ballot to our chairman. There was a full Republican line from governor down to our council seats, and the same thing in the Democratic side. And of course, when it came down to voting for mayor, you selected one, and the council at large, they could crisscross the lines. So they could have very easily picked one Republican, one Dem, 2 of each, or whatever. So that's how the ballot is somewhat. I don't think I could get that up to you to really look at it, but you'll see that there were three seats up in our past election, mayor and 2 council, and we just happened to be successful in the Democratic line. And that brings up a very good point, Bill, because I thought about this after the last election, which was just an incredible election result. And a win is a win. And I don't make light of anyone winning an election, but we lost a lot of great friends on the Democratic line this year. And I wondered afterwards, if it wasn't broken down by party and maybe just name recognition and anything else, I don't know how many people who lost might have won just for the fact that someone would say, oh, I remember that person. That person's been around. You follow my point? The fact that it was an R&D and a tremendous Republican wave this time around, that did a lot of friends in, right or wrong. But the people have spoken, and it is what it is. But
If you could change it, would you change it to
no,
non-party?
I don't think so. I think what we say in Aberdeen when we walk around, and we still do it the old-fashioned way, we knock on doors. With COVID, we were very, very, very careful, keeping distances, knock on the door, back off. But we knocked on a lot of doors, and it worked. It worked well. We got the sense of how the election was going to turn out in Monmouth County and how it was going to turn out in Aberdeen by knocking on those doors. And we're certainly glad we did all the work we did personally, the three of us.
So what do you think is the benefit of having partisan election?
Well, I think maybe it might be a corny answer, but it's life as we know it. Right, wrong, or indifferent. But the point I want to make, and thank you for following up, the follow-up to that is what we told our residents when we knocked and met them, and we've known these people for 30, 35 years now. We tell people all the time, there's no Republican or Democratic way to build a park, fill in a pothole, or anything like that. So the point is, I think we were successful because we've been so involved with our volunteerism. The two people I ran with, one's a lifetime resident. The other gentleman was a teacher and football coach for years, and they had their name recognition out there. And so I tell people all the time, it's not that it's an R or a D, because Aberdeen voted for every Republican right down the line, except for us. And they crossed over from me and went, and then continued to go down. So I don't think for us, it was closer than the other two that I've been involved with. I'm just entering my fourth term now. And so it was a little closer, but I'm out there, and I think it's up to the individual to get elected or reelected. And so I think don't shy away from it. I'm a registered Democrat, but at the same time, I've been so involved with the community that I think the community realized that. And that's the little trick now for everybody who's listening in is, I just don't wake up one morning and say, boy, I'm going to run for office. This has got to be a kick. And you run and you have no background, no volunteerism. That's the answer, really, is your involvement in your community. And I never thought I'd run for office. I was just asked, and the people who asked me were of a particular party, and I was not a member of that party originally. And I said, this is a great honor. And I changed parties and I ran, and been very, very fortunate.
Your town is kind of bifurcated by Matawan. Would wards make sense?
I'm sorry, Bill, can you?
Well, your town, Matawan kind of split your town almost in two, as I recall, looking at the geography. And
yeah,
I'm wondering whether that those two groups might be better represented by a ward system instead of a non-ward system.
No, you know something, Bill, we've been hearing things like consolidation, and we've been hearing shared services since the Christie era. And you all have to realize, I think we had one consolidation last year. Maybe the Princeton area comes to mind as a consolidation. People are still not ready to give up any home rule. and we would absorb Mattawan in. There's no doubt we're larger than, we're almost twice the size of Mattawan. But, at this point in time, we have some shared services together, but I don't think you'd see a consolidation unless someone really came down from Trenton and said, it's time, and it's not going to happen.
Okay, I asked my question early, but yeah, I know it wasn't about consolidation. It was about whether within Aberdeen you should have wards.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're correct. We do have, well, I don't like saying this, but we do have at least 3 distinctive parts of town that make up Aberdeen. We have Strathmore area, we have a Cliffwood section, and we have the Cliffwood Beach section. And they all have identities to themselves. But I don't think a ward that would work with us because the idea was to get away from the old thinking that, and people still use it. You may find people say, I live in Clifford Beach. Yes, you do, but you live in Aberdeen. And someone might say, I live in Cliffwood. You do, but you live in Aberdeen. But that's just what they're accustomed to from their childhood, some of them. But we do come together as one, and I think that would work and will continue to work for us.
Okay, and how about holding elections on a concurrent versus staggered basis? How does it work for you now?
Well, we have elections every 2 years. We just finished an election in November, and we'll be constant now for 2 years. 2 years from now, we'll have 4 people up for re-election, and that's really serious business. Every election is serious, but in that election 2 years from now, that's where a party could lose control of their council when 4 individuals are up for election. That has not been the case in our town in over 25 years. We have maintained a certain political hold, but I think it's for the facts I have mentioned. We have people with a long history of service to our town. We have 2 former retired teachers with us, a former Board of Ed member with us, people who've come out of youth organizations. So I think it's up to us to create the balance that will make it an appealing ticket. But I think it works. I think it works well. It's just a lot of stress sometimes in that election.
It's better than almost every year, I guess, huh?
Oh yeah, Mattawan is every year. Someone's always running in Mattawan, and I just don't think they get a breath, to hold, to stay intact the way we do.
Question on, question about elections. So when you run for mayor, can you also run for council? Or if you lose mayor, you're just out?
I am a council member. When you read the law, the Faulkner law gives the mayor in this form of government no extra powers except.
Yes,
So I couldn't run for mayor and council in the same year because number one, we may not get the 7 that we need because I'm going to be one of the 7. The mayor is one of the 7. So I ran mayor and 2 council members in November. So the 3 of us waltzed in and met the 4 already in office. Now, 2 years from now, whoever gets elected 2 years from now in Aberdeen will walk into the reorg and meet the 3 of us. So there's 7.
Right. So you could have lost for mayor and the other candidate won as mayor, and the other 2 council people who were, say, running with you could have won.
Correct.
Okay. So you have to make a decision whether you're running for mayor or not.
You do, right. It's a separate line. And just like I said before, my election is separate. And then the councilman seats, you choose 2 out of the 4 that are in the 2 blocks. And again, I doubt it you'd be able to see it. But the residents of Aberdeen had the opportunity to vote for any two of the four
Right.
running for the two council seats. And next time they will choose 4 of the 8 names they see on the ballot to sit on the council.
Your term, Fred, is no different from the council member terms. You're all for 4 years, I imagine.
We're all 4 years. Yes, we're 4-year terms.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, changing direction a little bit. Have the residents ever petitioned for a referendum in your town?
No. We've not had any of those during my tenure, and I doubt before me, or else I would have known it. No, none whatsoever.
Are they aware that they have the right, though?
I don't think I could go that far and say that. No, I don't think anybody is might be aware of that. Some might be. I'm sure our opposition are aware of it, but no, I don't think it's something that comes up that much, really.
Okay.
We follow the budget guidelines. There's no need to do anything in that sense of it. So no, I would rather. I think for the most part things are pretty good, and but then again, we never know what tomorrow brings when the sun comes up. But no.
Okay, and this question's a moot question because you've answered it. If you could change the current form of government, what would it be and why?
No, I don't think I would, because if I was to say yes, Bill, it would almost be from a selfish point of view, because it would then thinking that I was looking for additional powers, and I'm not, because I can't just think of the position I'm in. I have to think of the next person and the next people coming aboard who are working full time. And yes, I do have the time to take on more, but this seems to work out really, really well when I was still working full time. And you have to keep that in mind. Most of our council people are full-time employees working, and this works out very well. But choose your manager well. That's your homework. Choose the person that's going to be. You had a great manager in Holmdel. In fact, I believe Eric Hines was the mayor when you hired her, and we interviewed her also. And obviously, you guys had won out, but she's also, I've heard, moved on too. But Eric and I used to talk all the time, and we'd always bet at dinner who would get Sharon, and he did win. But we did very well for ourselves too. It all worked out.
And last is, go ahead.
No. It just worked well. She's a terrific person. We liked her very much, but we were lagging behind a little bit too much, and Holmdel was successful in getting her. But like I said, we did well too. That's the biggest part. I think I'm on my 4th police commissioner, my 3rd manager, 3rd public works director. So those are the kind of things that really will test you, is to find the right individuals for those key positions, and that's where we work with the manager pretty well.
And the last question is, anything else you'd like to add?
No, but I do thank you for the invite. I hope I shed some light. I do have a question, and I know it's being taped, but my dear friend Pat and Perbavuto seemed to have put something out on Facebook saying "Save Holmdel" or "Restore Holmdel" or "Tradition, keep tradition alive." Is it that close of a situation where, or you're just confined to the point where you're studying it? And who will you present your ideas to? The sitting council? Is that how it would work? No.
Ken, why don't you take that?
Sure. The Charter Study Commission once we go through this phase 2 process, we will then discuss and deliberate, and then make any recommendations, if any. And if we do decide to make recommendation, it will be in the final report that will be filed with the clerk. There is no, and then those recommendations will become a public question. It does not go through township. So right now we're in a township committee. It won't go through council, township committee, whatever, but it will then become a public question for the public to decide, yes or no.
Okay, good, very good. Certainly have your work cut out for you, but it's good. I thank you for the time. I thank you for the invite. It was a pleasure being with you. I am going to excuse myself. And Amy, thank you so very much for letting me go first. And I apologize for not listening to your answers, but I can always get a hold of you and give my best to the mayor. Okay. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Mayor.
if you need me, please don't hesitate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I'm going to call you at 9 o'clock. I'm going to call you at 9 o'clock. And I'm going to begin with say, I hate to bother you, but.
But yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. So we appreciate it, Deputy Mayor Quinn, for that little last minute change up. And I didn't realize he had some time limit initially, but we're going to turn now the floor to Commissioner Burke, who will introduce you and then go to the similar set of questions. So you'll be a lot more well prepared than Mayor Taglerini.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in. Amy is the Senior Staff Director for the Community Health Law Project in Neptune, which is an agency that represents low-income individuals with disabilities. Through negotiation, litigation, and advocacy, she combats discrimination, protects rights, and preserves independence and quality of life. She's been the Asbury Park Deputy Mayor since 2014. She always seeks to involve the residents in community decisions, creates transparency in government by improving communication, supports small businesses, and recently has kept the residents safe during the pandemic. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, brevity is my favorite. So.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so let me begin with the questions. Could you please describe your municipality's form of government? We talked about it briefly in the intro.
Yeah, I can, I'm going to piggyback on Fred, but he I thought described it pretty well. Council, manager, weak mayor. The difference maybe with us and Frank is while I was in office, we changed our form of government. So we went from municipal manager to a charter study form, studied the issue. I believe went through, I'm going to say 12, you guys would know this better than me, 12 different forms of government, narrowed it down to 2, the weak mayor and the strong mayor, and then ultimately picked the weak mayor. So while I've been in office, it changed its form of government because, Asbury. So we don't ever like to, Asbury. So.
Okay, do you want to explain any more about why you started moving that direction?
Yeah, we can, sure. So in the municipal manager form of government, some good things about it, some not great things about it. One was that you had elections every 4 years and all 5 seats were up. And that meant all out brawl elections every 4 years. And not something I think I would recommend again. I would always recommend staggered terms. So what would happen is the 5 seats would be up and you'd have 30 people in an election, which we did in 2013. 2 different tickets won that. Myself, John Moore, and another person on our ticket won, and then 2 of the incumbents won. historically in Asbury, the highest number of votes just respectfully went to the mayor. Second highest number basically respectfully went to the deputy mayor. I think John was ahead of me by, maybe 2 or 3 votes. So we move forward with this idea that John would be mayor, I would be deputy mayor, and we'd have council members. And I have to tell you, it wasn't even a thought for us. Anyway, that didn't happen. And I think people in town felt displeasure at not kind of following the historic nature of how those elections had run. Somebody else became mayor, somebody else became deputy mayor. And people, people didn't love that. And so the charter study eventually was formed, and they went through these forms of government. And probably one of the first things they did was have directly elected mayor. I think Fred made a good point that, I don't know that I would say this if that didn't happen in 2013, because historically they really did always have the kind of highest vote getters take on those positions that don't have any more say than any other council member. It's quite frankly ceremonial in nature. But because people felt that what had historically always happened didn't happen, this charter study was formed, and one of the first things they did was do direct elect mayor. That was kind of the background for that. So just in terms of our old form of government, because there's not huge changes, there's a couple of changes to it, but the elections every 4 years with everybody up is difficult, and that can be stressful. And I think similar to what the mayor previously said, when a majority's up, you get a much bigger base of people coming out to challenge you, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not saying I have an opinion on that one way or the other, but a larger group of people come out when majorities are up, and every 4 years majorities were up in Asbury. So you had just really rough elections every 4 years. Asbury elections were not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions regarding this subject? No? Okay, the Faulkner Act provides different forms of government and options within those forms. Can you, I think maybe you've already answered this.
Yeah, I think the Charter Study Commission got down to 2, weak mayor or strong mayor, ultimately picking weak mayor. I did talk to Pam Lamberton, who was the chair of our Charter Study Commission in Asbury Park a couple days ago. I think it's tough sometimes for the strong mayor form of government, that I think it's tough to find somebody that is a specific skill set that, not everybody who wants to run for office may have. And so I think they thought the weak mayor was a better idea, and then hire a city manager that would have, all of these credentials. And particularly, and I don't know that much about Aberdeen, but I'll say particularly in Asbury Park, we are a small city with big city problems, right? So, we have the same problems that New York City has, just on a smaller kind of microcosm of them. So we need somebody who has some redevelopment experience, some small business experience, some financial experience, I think it's a hard position to get somebody elected with the skill set that a city manager has. And Ken, I might be wrong, but if you guys were talking about Donna Viero, who is that? Okay, so she's Asbury's city manager. So I'm sitting there thinking, so Donna Viero is Asbury Park city manager, who has the skill set, right? She has the skill set to cover, kind of all of the wide range of issues that occur in Asbury. What is your question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
Could I just ask a question? I know you technically Asbury Park is known as the city of Asbury, but what is your population?
About 15. Yeah, about 15,000. It went down in the last. Yeah, it went down in our last census.
Okay, so it's city, but not really from a normal size. Because actually, Holmdel is bigger than you guys in World Township. But got it. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? We're good. Okay, what do you think works best for your current council manager form of government?
Again, I think having the council manager with the skill set that you need to run a place like Asbury Park, I would say, I I think our form of government overall, I mean, I would make a couple of tweaks here and there, but overall, the idea that the council talks to the public, talks to the residents, and then, comes up with policy, and the city manager implements that policy as best he or she can. I don't think that's a bad way to kind of run a city. I think we run it well. I'd say sometimes Fred's small council member committees was interesting to me. We have council members on almost all of our, we have a council member, I'm the council member on Shade Tree and Public Art. Yvonne Clayton's on Quality of Life, John Moore's on, Planning Board. So we have a council member on every kind of public committee, but I guess we hadn't thought about, creating internal committees with council members on it. So that's kind of interesting to me. I'm going to kind of bring back to everybody and Don and see their thoughts, and maybe reach out to the mayor and see how that works out there.
Okay, so that segues into the next question. What could be improved in the way your current form of government works?
So his committee idea was one of them. So I'm going to take that and then jump a little bit down. So when I think about ways to improve the city, I think part of it will have to do with elections, and part of it will have to do with, general government. But the one part of these elections that we currently have, I don't love, is the runoff. It's just, we didn't have a runoff before. So in 2013, when we had the municipal manager form of government, everybody's seat was up. It was an all-out election, and then the top 5 people got the seat. The charter study implemented this runoff, and I don't know, it just, for me, I don't love it. I don't love this idea. I'm a little bit more comfortable with the highest number of votes kind of getting into the seats than creating another election after what is, arguably already a stressful election.
So could you just explain a little more about how the runoff works?
So we have not had a runoff. So that's one of it. I was up in 2020 with a majority of the council, Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton and Eileen Chapman, and we had all won by nearly double. So let's say the first person had 10 and I had 20. But calculating whether or not you had 51% of the votes, one, took us a minute to figure that out. And then 2, we didn't have a lot of people running in that election, but when you have 5, 10, or 15 people running for 2 seats, I guess I'm not clear how you don't have a runoff, right? To me, you're just going to have a runoff. And I think, I don't love that idea. I should probably talk to you after we have a runoff, so I have a better idea of it. I just don't like the idea of having people run and then having people run again. And I get the logic of, you want people to have 50% or 50 plus 1% of the votes. It's still, it's a little inundating when you're the person running, right? And you get 20 other people that there's just no way you can get to that 50% number. But you know what, I should probably reserve my judgment on that until we have them. That was the only part, that was the part of the charter study in 2013 I didn't love when they were passing it. And I ultimately voted yes on the question to change our form of government. The other question in 2013 that I didn't support with the charter study was a ward system. And I would say in 2022, I might, I think I would change my position on that. In 2013, I didn't think we needed a ward system. Didn't think we were a town that needed to be broken up by wards and have representation from wards. And I would say, having been in office now 7 or 8 years, that would be something I would reconsider, especially with the pandemic, the revitalization and gentrification that's happened in Asbury Park. We really want to make sure people living on the east, north, south, west, every side of town's issues get represented on the council. So that would be a little bit, that might be a change in the years that I've been on government. But I think I jumped ahead of you. So our form of government, I feel similar to the mayor. I don't have any major changes. A little bit more, and it might be committees, internal council committees. That might be good. Or, sometimes I don't know when somebody retires because our city manager handles the day-to-day. And so I things like that, I would love to be a little bit more of a part of. And it's probably just a matter of us creating a policy saying anytime somebody retires, let us know so we can, reach out. I think any concerns, any negatives that I have with this form of government, we could probably create a policy to fix it.
I'm sorry, I did have one question. I think you kind of cited quadrants like east, north, south. Is there notable differences among the four? Like I'm assuming four, but if there's more, let me know. But so are there one or two that are clearly different than the rest? I guess the implications, you're not homogeneous, right? Obviously.
No, I think we're a very diverse city on a lot of fronts. So there's 9 voting districts in Asbury, even though we're only about one square mile, a little over a square mile, and there's still 9 voting districts. I think the police break it down into 4 quadrants, right? So you have the waterfront, which I would, kind of consider one specific quadrant, the downtown, which, has its own set of kind of diverse concerns and wants and needs. You have the kind of residential northwest side, single family houses, speeding, that's something they would say, their property taxes, that would be something they would want to address with the council. Downtown would want to address commercial space, or Asbury's got a number of bars that inevitably create drunk people that inevitably cause problems for our small businesses downtown. So, those are kinds of concerns we get there. When I was talking about the waterfront, sustainability, building LEED accredited, those are things that people who live in the waterfront are concerned about. And then when you go to Southwest, which is generally our part of town that people are living at or near the poverty level, more issues related to affordability, our school district, things like that. So I think that's why I have thought differently now about the ward system in terms of ensuring that all of these different kind of quadrants of the city's representation is heard on not only the council, but all of our boards, our planning board, our zoning boards, our environmental boards, our recreation boards. So I don't know that I thought that in 2013, but having governed now for some time, I don't think I would oppose it this time, I think is the point I'm making.
Don't you have representative like Yvonne Clayton? Doesn't she represent the Southwest?
She does, and for a long time I was on Deal Lake Drive in the waterfront, right? So you had me in the waterfront, you had John and Eileen in Northwest, you had Yvonne in Southwest. So, and I think that, quite frankly, I think that's part of the reason I think we automatically had it covered. We had all of the quadrants covered in the city just by way of who we were and where we lived. And I think that might be something that down the road, you want to ensure that you have that. And maybe it's just picking a ticket that has that. So everybody feels like they see a quadrant of where they live represented. And maybe it's creating words. I don't know. When I was looking at your question, I was asking myself, how would I vote on that now? Would it be different than when I voted before? And words is something I would pause on now.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So we'll go over some of the further questions. Some have already, you've probably spoken about. Okay. So you elect the mayor directly. You like doing that?
I do.
Okay. Anything to add to that? No?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. Electing them, I'm not sure that we would have done that if this thing hadn't happened in 2013. Over, for decades, this tradition had kind of been followed about the highest number of vote person, but I don't see any downfall in directly electing a mayor. And I thought the previous mayor made a good point. I don't, maybe people really do want to know who's going to be their mayor and who's going to be the kind of ceremonial mayor. And so, yeah, no qualms about that one.
Okay. Now, how many people do you have? 5, right?
We have 5, and also that I think is manageable. I saw your 9, and I found that rather staggering to me. That would be a little much for us. We could maybe do 7. I think we had a discussion on 7, or I might have been part of the discussion on that with charter study, but we cover most of the city with 5 people, I think pretty representationally. We're able to get the job done with 5. And I think if you have a bigger population than us and you go to 7, I don't think that's a problem. Going to 9, I think that's a lot of opinion, that's a lot of people in a room.
Okay. You are non-partisan. Do you have any feelings about that?
Yeah, I have strong feelings on that. I really don't agree with the previous mayor on it. I think partisan elections don't provide a pathway for everyone to have a fair shot in getting in. So I think that I'm a Democrat, right? Yvonne's a Democrat. John Moore was a Republican. He's now a Democrat and just changed over time. Eileen's an independent. And I think those, different backgrounds and to some extent ideologies are helpful on this council. It's not all the same, we're not all Dems down the line, right? So in terms of ideological views, I think it's good to have different views on a council, respectful, but different. I also think if you're, we're a little bit seeing this play out in Red Bank, but if you're seeing, if you're the best person for the job, whether you're independent, Republican, or Democrat, you should have the job, right? So I'm not sure you should have it because you're a Democrat, or you should have it for your Republican, or you shouldn't have it because you're an independent. I think if you can do the job well, that part should be somewhat irrelevant. Similar to what the previous mayor said, we're not creating healthcare, and we're filling potholes, or certainly trying to create progressive policies, particularly in places like Asbury Park. But I'm all for nonpartisan elections.
Okay. Any other questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, we talked about electing by ward. So I think you've covered that.
Yeah, that one I would pause on. This is 8 years later, I would pause on that one. For a town like Asbury Park, I don't know enough about Holmdel to know if you need wards, but for a town like Asbury Park, I would pause on that question this time around.
And I think you've talked about concurrent and staggered basis.
Yeah, I would definitely do staggered elections. That's for sure. When we had everybody up in one, every 4 years, that was difficult. That was difficult in a lot of ways. One, you raised a lot of money because you were competing against tons of people. It was far more stressful than staggered, and there was a lack of kind of consistency. So, even if me, Yvonne, and Eileen lose and somebody else wins, you still have 2 people who have some sort of kind of historical knowledge of, what's worked and what hasn't worked previously. And I really think that's important. John Moore's the mayor in Asbury, worked for DPW he was the deputy director of Department of Public Works for years and has a historical knowledge that I didn't have. And I moved here in 2000. Yvonne Clayton has a knowledge in Asbury Park. She grew up here, literally lives in her childhood home. So the consistency in terms of the staggered terms, even if you have an election and maybe that election is unpleasant, if everybody's not up, there's some sort of historical knowledge going on there about how things have worked in the past and what hasn't worked in the past.
So how did you change when you went to the new form of government? Were some of the elected officials just for 2 years and others 1 year? Or how
exactly? Yeah. So I was 2. So I have run for 2 years in an election in Asbury for quite some time. But yeah, so you had to pick straws. I mean, it was that you pick straws, and whoever got whichever straw you had 4 years or 2 years. And the other thing I'll say to you about the nonpartisan, in terms of our ballot, your name is picked out of a hat by our clerk publicly. It's in public. There's a big, drawing. And, if she picks my name first, it's Amy Quinn, Yvonne Clayton, Eileen Chapman, John Moore, or John Moore, or if somebody else is running, there's not, your name is quite literally picked out of a hat for the lineup on the ballot, which I don't know, reads to me a bit more fair, right?
And you're talking about the county clerk or the local clerk?
Our local clerk picks the names out of a hat for
Thank you.
our local election ballot.
Any other questions? No? Okay, as we know, under the Faulkner form of government, residents can petition for a referendum for an ordinance. Are you aware whether any residents in your town have done this?
Yes. So this was one of the big reasons Asbury Park, one of the reasons Asbury Park changed their form of government was there was a real desire to have initiative and referendum. And we just had, we've had several, we've had a few that were, like increase the number of liquor licenses, which is like, you know what, we already have enough, we're good. And the voters of Asbury Park were like, we're good, we don't need any more liquor licenses. But we had one recently that was certainly a very lively and passionate one, which was about rent control. It got the required number of signatures to implement a rent control initiative. And while it didn't pass, it certainly got all of us on the council to pass a different version of a rent control ballot. So my understanding from the charter study from years ago was a real desire to have referendums and more, I think the charter study, and I agree with them, the thought was to have more people involved in city government in that way. So I would say that was successful. And, I don't have any complaints about it. I mean, sometimes we get crazy things on the ballot, but generally speaking, I don't have any issue with it.
So since there's been a change, do you feel that residents are more involved?
In that process, absolutely, because they're required to sign something saying they want to see this on the ballot, and then they need to go vote yes or no on it. So, I would actually absolutely advise. I feel very comfortable saying that brought more residents feeling like they were in the fold in terms of decision making or getting policies in front of us in ways that, if they felt they couldn't get a policy in front of us a different way. And you know what, it's good for us, right? So if I see, I think the position, one of the things that a group of people are certainly talking about in Asbury is an art tax. And for me, while I personally have no problem supporting an art tax and would happily pay an art tax, it's important to me to see what the rest of the city of Asbury Park wants to do. If that was passed overwhelmingly or not passed overwhelmingly, that would be interesting information for me to have. I don't know how people feel about an art tax. And at the end of the day, people didn't support the rent control referendum, but did support our eventual rent control policy.
What's an art tax, Amy?
So you would create a tax. Jersey City has one, and it would go into a trust for art-related projects that can relate anything from art education for after school recreation department. I don't know if you know Asbury well, but we have a bunch of murals everywhere. It would create money and get more murals in Asbury Park. And it's not just for art, it's also for historic preservation. So again, if you know anything about Asbury, we've lost beautiful, beautiful buildings, which has been heartbreaking for many of us. So I'm gonna completely, the spirit of what I say is going to be correct if I don't say this all technically 100% accurate. But I think this group of people thinking about an art tax are thinking, a penny per $100,000 or something like that, and what that would, let's say that's $75,000, of money towards very specifically historic preservation or art tax. So I think that may make it to initiative and referendum. And why that's good for both residents is because at the end of the day, they'll decide, right? If an overwhelming number are willing to pay for, pay a little bit more for an art tax, or if an overwhelming number say, absolutely not, I'm not paying anything more for an art tax. That part of the initiative and referendum, I think, is helpful to me both as a council member. Does that make sense? Did I explain that right?
Okay, the next to last question is with you to make any changes, and I think you've gone through this, things you're mulling over in your mind, wards, things of that sort. Anything else?
No, I would say, if I said to you, the two things I probably, or at least the one thing I feel the most passionate about of all of it, and maybe I may get beat up by the Dems, is nonpartisan. I think when you're partisan, you potentially exclude a demographic of people that would serve well on a board. So.
Okay,
I'm sure I'm irritating every Dem.
so that's something you don't want to change now.
No, yeah, that's something I would say to you guys, that if I were looking at this, I would say I would look at not having partisan elections. I don't think they feed well in towns, and I don't know that they get the best person elected.
Okay.
That's my experience.
Okay, and anything else that we didn't ask you that you'd like to share with us?
I don't think so. I think the mayor before me did a really great job covering most of it. I think I'm good. Hope that was helpful.
Very helpful. Any further questions from anybody? No?
I presume that elections were on a partisan basis in your previous form of government. Was that one of the changes in your?
No, they were never.
Study?
I watch it in the towns surrounding us, and it just looks awful to me. We've never been partisan. The one thing we did do is change from May to November, and that was actually really helpful as well in terms of making sure we had more people out. But I think in Asbury, having the nonpartisan, it's not even an issue. So when we go door to door and somebody says, "Are you a Dem or Republican?" It doesn't really matter. I can address the concerns, the pothole, the speeding, the increase in taxes in commercial space, the drunks downtown. There's no conversation on, did I support Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? Does that make sense?
Mhm. Very good.
Okay, one last chance. If there are no more questions, we want to thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Quinn.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. I know your schedule is a little bit tight, and then Fred threw the little wrinkle in there for you, but we appreciate it.
No, it was great to have him go through kind of, to me, the slightly less sexy stuff. So I was happy to let him go first and go through, all of that stuff.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you very much. You're free to stay on. We're gonna pretty much we're kind of done with our regular business agenda, and we'll go to public comment. But again, thank you very much. Really, really do appreciate it. It's been very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pop off in a minute or two. I got to put my son to sleep. But thanks again for having.
Okay.
Any other questions? Feel free to email or and any help I can give by all means.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Amy.
much. So let me make sure I have no other new business. Does anyone else have any new business?
Are we going to talk about a public hearing for phase 2?
Well, yeah, I think we still need to kind of check to see if we got any more invited guests. So there's still some question on that right now, because we want to have we're definitely going to have a public hearing for phase 2, but let's make sure we have all our guest speakers in for now. So I'm not sure we're there yet. I do know that we have some conflicts for the next meeting, and what I'd like to do is maybe get a motion to cancel the next scheduled meeting, and so that our next meeting would be, I think, April 7th.
Moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So if I can take a roll call, Kevin, on the motion is to cancel the March 31st meeting.
Yes. Commissioner Burke,
Yes.
Commissioner Buffalino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gilstein,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cassidy,
Yes.
and Chairman Kenji.
Yes. Okay, so the meeting for March 31st is canceled and our next meeting will be April 7th. Okay, so we're gonna, if there's no other business, we're gonna open up for public comment. I think before we do that, Counselor, I think you want to read a statement?
Yes. I made a version of this statement at the last meeting, but I think it's important enough to just go through it briefly again. And that is, I wanted to review the purpose of the Charter Study Commission because it's important to understand the role of the commissioners who have been elected by the people and the conduct of these proceedings. The purpose of the Charter Study Commission is to review the current form of government in Holmdel, to understand the potential alternative forms of government, and to make a recommendation as to whether or not the current form should be changed, and if it should, to what form is preferred. The key word in that is recommendation. This commission does not have the power to change the form of government. Only the residents of Holmdel have that right. This committee can only make a recommendation. The residents have the ultimate right by casting a vote at a public election on any recommendation. The hearings that are conducted by the commission, like this one tonight, are always held in public, and they are subject to the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, meaning that all discussions are held in public, notice is given of the date and time of the meeting, there's a published agenda, and the public has a right to observe. The public has also been provided the opportunity to comment at every meeting, and as we just discussed, there has been one separate meeting for the public, and there will be another one scheduled, just set aside just for public input and comment. As residents who have attended the prior commission meetings have seen, a number of invited guests attend the meeting. They give information to the commissioners and to the public about the topics before the commission. Those guests are not just residents of Holmdel, but they include elected and appointed officials from other towns, as well as experts from Rutgers and other organizations with knowledge about the forms of government. As far as members of the public are concerned, they are able to make comments during the designated public comment period, which we'll get to shortly. But because this is not a trial or even a deposition in a litigation, the public participants do not have a right to cross-examine or question the invited guests or commissioners. The purpose of these hearings is to gather information, but the public is free to comment. They are free to express their viewpoint on the change of government issues and the discussions that are being had. I would suggest that constructive input in this process is always welcome, but personal attacks, and there have been some on these meetings already, are not productive and are really not warranted. We should all remember the process is designed by law to allow for the commissioners and ultimately the residents to determine the best form of government for Holmdel. And I would suggest that if everyone can keep that in mind, we could have a productive meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I will now open it up for public comment. Again, for the benefit of those who may be new to this, if you look on the bottom of your screen, there is an icon that looks like your hand or the palm of your hand. If you click on that, that will raise your hand and will let me know that you wish to make a public comment. And when I do call on you, please state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes, please. Just gonna take a moment to see if anyone's raising their hand. It looked like I do have one. Hopefully I get this right. You got a Wes and Delilah Fagan. And please state your name, address, and then you have 3 minutes. Wes and Delilah Fagan. Good. You just turned. Okay.
West Fagan, 50 Chestnut Ridge Road. When we last met, March 3rd, I asked about the expenses of this commission. I was told that our taxes were appropriated to pay our attorney, the secretary, and the expenses of our commissioners and guests. We agreed that within the Holmdel Charter Study website, there is a link to P.O. Box 761 for donations. I asked our attorney if this was legal, Mr. G if this was moral, and if commissioners, if it just did not matter. I asked, is the donor list available to the public? Following these questions, I was kicked out of the meeting, so I heard no reply and have not been in since. I had to go back over the weekend to listen to the answers. By Sunday, the P.O. box link was gone, scrubbed from the site. Our attorney offered no comment. Mr. G said I was, quote, I was confused about a lot of things. Timekeeper said it did not matter because no one was taking a salary at this time. Another commissioner was troubled by the public's comments, but assured us that they have not done anything bad, sinister, nor deceitful, and have yet to do, quote, a damn thing wrong. He further advised that Holmdel needs to, quote, align with more modern standards. Does that sound like an open mind? When reference was made to how and when this commission was formed, we were informed that during those 2021 midsummer Zoom meetings, we, the residents, were asleep at the switch. That is apparently so, since it took a 9-member commission to pave over a blue line, but 5 here to divide the people, dismantle the norms of party affiliation, and erase one history. Later, Mr. G announced that he is not required to allow public comment, and we, in essence, should be thankful we are permitted to speak at all. If we are nice, he may continue to permit it in phase 3. By the way, I'm thankful for my 3 minutes. Next, it was revealed that the party boss is Sean Golden. I said, where have I heard that name before? So I went back to HolmdelCharter.com. On the first page is a letter dated February 1st from Sheriff Golden, which states in part, you can count on me for support, unquote. Then on Valentine's Day, you replied, quote, thank you for your support. How sweet. So here we discover Sean is the root of our problems, and you are publicly trading niceties. Why isn't he invited here over the next dozen, well, now 11 meetings left? Why isn't he brought in here so you can expose our shortcomings? You can question him about his manipulation, or don't you have the, and here's where you fill in your own adjective, to see him face to face. Lastly, Mr. G said we would have in-person meetings when he felt it appropriate. Initially, we were told we were Zooming because of the uncertainties of COVID. When that passed, we are now Zooming for the sake of our guest speakers. Is this process for the benefit of the speakers, of the commissioners, or for we, the public? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is John Giampolo.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
John Giampolo, 43 Blue Hills Drive. I just hope that this commission was paying attention to the reasoning, and I'm sorry to say it just sounds like absurd reasoning that the mayor of Asbury Park gave for why she supports the nonpartisan elections, because it's the same reasoning that I have to say is absurd reasoning that's been given by, that I've heard being given by other unsuccessful candidates in Holmdel who support changing to nonpartisan election. The reasoning is that nonpartisan elections would be more fair to candidates, that some candidates have a hard time running or have a hard time getting elected and feel that it's not fair enough for them, or maybe it's just not easy enough for them to get elected with the partisan system we currently have. That is a completely backwards priority. What is obviously most important is fairness to the voters, transparency to the voters, not to the candidates. If many residents, if many voters in Holmdel choose to vote down their chosen party line, whether it's Republican or Democrat, and whether or not that's the smartest thing to do sometimes, that's still their choice, that's still their right. And many voters, I probably would say most voters, want to know the affiliation or at least association of the candidates that are running. What is most important is giving transparency and fairness to voters so that they know what they're voting. They know everything that they want to know about what they're voting for, not to give more fairness or an easier time to get elected to candidates. That's a completely backwards priority. It's up to candidates to convince voters that they should be elected. It's not up to candidates to change our government just to make it easier for them to get elected. I would also say that I also hope the commission was paying attention to when the mayor of Aberdeen said that the reason he would not want to change his current form of government was because if he did, it would be for selfish reasons, because it would be just to make the powers given to him, the mayor, greater or stronger. When unfortunately, that's exactly what we know our current mayor did. He's now at the last town meeting said that he put forth the Charter Study Commission. And we know that in at least one of your previous meetings, he said that he favors and obviously wants you to recommend less frequent elections for the mayor so that he would stay in office longer, and that he doesn't like having the oversight from the committee because it gets in the way of day-to-day business, I believe is what he said. And the mayor, as you heard the mayor of Aberdeen say, that's not a reason to change your government. That's changes just for the benefit of the mayor, not for the benefit of voters or the residents.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Christian Damari. State your name, address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Chris Damari, 7 Oaks. I'm getting tired of the people behind this charter study misleading my friends and family in Holmdel with these marketing pitches, elect the mayor directly, power to the people, coming from the same group of people who haven't even included us people in this process. None of your guests have ever operated out of the township form of government. They define their government you promote as strong mayor, not as power to the people. It is electing a mayor who gained strong power and long tenures, and the proof is in the 4 municipalities you brought onto your show who used the Faulkner Act to change their local government. Ocean mayor, Democrat, serving his 6th year. Marlborough mayor, Democrat, serving his 15th year. Aberdeen mayor, Democrat, serving his 12th year. Asbury Park mayor, Democrat, serving his 8th year. Holmdel is a conservative-leaning town, so it's interesting to note that you brought on 4 towns with strong Democratic control. We already know that the Faulkner Act is primarily used in the largest New Jersey cities, which are now overruled by the Democratic Party. Now you're showing us the smaller towns that are using the same playbook. Holmdel already has power to the people, which dictates what the residents in this town want by directly electing 5 committee members where the power is balanced. I'm following up so the Holmdel residents clearly understand this absurd party boss saga we've continued to hear about throughout the process. Mayor Bontempo won non-endorsed, and Prakash and Kathy are independents. On an earlier show, King G couldn't gloat anymore over a Republican Sheriff Golden form letter, and then telling us in another meeting that one of the primary reasons this charter study was put forth is because of the influence of the same party boss. The reality is, Holmdel residents are becoming concerned about the Democratic Party boss, State Senator Vin Gopal, who we read was influential in local elections in 2 towns you brought on, Ocean and Asbury Park. The Holmdel Democratic Party, including Commissioner Burke, had Vin Gopal as a guest right here in Holmdel last September to support Holmdel Township Committee candidate Raul Diddy, the Diddy family being another recent politician who lost elections that signed all of your petitions. Vin Gopal, since 2018, has publicly stated to his colleagues the strategy is to focus on municipal elections. We're much more concerned about this party boss and the influence he has on Holmdel. Mayor Bontempo mentioned that he was not the one who originated the charter study, but he put it forth. We understand his motive. Majority of residents were definitely not thinking of changing our local government or cared about directly electing a mayor during a pandemic. The Holmdel residents have a right to transparency. Holmdel residents want to know, who is this group that the mayor claims are the ones who originated the charter study in Holmdel and marketed it to him? And is Vin Gopal the person who educated someone in Holmdel on this charter study? Did anyone on this commission ever hold a meeting in Holmdel with Vin or any county or state Democratic leaders to discuss the charter study in Holmdel to change our government so there's a chance to win elections? We have the right to know as residents who you all are.
All right. Thank you for your comment. Are there any other? I have a Ralph Purcell. You can state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Ralph Purcell, 18 Red Coach Lane. Thank you. When is this study going to be over and put to a vote? Where will the voting be held? Last time we voted, well, I voted in Hazlet. When are we going to vote? Why are we voting in Hazlet? Why don't we vote in Holmdel? We live in Holmdel. I don't understand the last race where we had a vote in Holmdel. We couldn't have voted in our own town. We had to vote in Hazlet. When is the charter study going to be in person? Why is it never in person so far? And who's making this decision that we can't have it in face-to-face? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me address something because I think there was some confusion. The gentleman asked, why did we vote in Hazlet? And I can understand why that's could be confusing. So for the first time in 2021 in the general election, New Jersey allowed what they call early voting in person. So most of you may or may not know, we always have mail-in ballots. So you can vote early and return it back. Then after that, you vote in person on election day. So it's the first Tuesday, it's the Tuesday after the first Monday, I think technically. And so basically, if you had to be somewhere on that Tuesday or if something happened, you could jeopardize your chance of voting or something like that. And then it makes the counting, I believe, by the election, the Board of Election and so on, a little bit more difficult. So New Jersey, for the first time in its history, allowed for early voting and a long time period. However, early voting meant a lot more resources would be needed, whether it's voting machine, poll workers, and so on. And so I believe both at the state and the county level, they limit the number of voting booths or voting polling stations, and they try to combine them. You can, if you choose to vote in Holmdel, you can still do that on election day. However, if you choose to vote early, which there was a 10-day period and so on, then you have to go to any of the locations, not necessarily in Hazlet for Holmdel resident. You actually go to any location within Monmouth County and vote. But if you really want to go to a Holmdel location, you can certainly do that on election day. So with that, let me see if there's any other question. Sorry, my 3 minutes up. Let me see. Ron Emma, state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Ron Emma, 32 Ladwood Drive. I believe I'm the unsuccessful candidate that Mr. Giampolo referred to earlier in his remarks. So let me just clear up a couple of things that were mentioned, I think were directed in my direction. When I was mentioning about the ballot as far as openness and transparency, I was not in any way saying it's unfair to the candidates. I am absolutely open for fairness to the voters. That's what this is all about. As far as the vitriol and the hostility that has been expressed towards this committee, I just can't understand where that's coming from. By statute, as you've explained over and over again, what you're going to be tasked with is a recommendation. Whether you change the form of government or you don't change the form of government, it will be a question for the voters. It's not about the candidate. It's for the voters to vote. As far as the party boss comment that was made and the letter that was referenced by Sean Golden, I actually think that's a fantastic idea. Invite Mr. Golden to this committee and let's really see where he falls on partisan versus nonpartisan elections. Because clearly the letter was just a political propaganda to just cover his backside. So please, Mr. Chairman, invite the Monmouth County Party boss to one of these meetings. I would love to hear his comments and his stance on partisan versus nonpartisan elections. And my last comment is, please just come out and vote. If you like it, vote. If you don't like it, vote. Open and transparency. And again, I applaud all of you for your time and effort that you put into this commission. And let's just move on respectfully without the hostility and the virtual. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just want to make sure if anyone else wants to speak, there's a little icon on the bottom of your screen. You can click on that. I don't see any more hands raised. So I will close public comment portion of this meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting? Oop, you're on mute, Commissioner Burke.
Moved.
Okay. Second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No nay. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.